Ethan had always loved the quiet life of the countryside. The days were slow, the nights peaceful, and nothing strange ever happened. But on one rainy evening, something unusual caught his eye. He was driving his old pickup truck back home when he noticed a figure standing in the middle of the muddy road. At first, he thought it was just a horse that had wandered away from a nearby farm. Its silver coat gleamed even under the dull gray sky, and its mane moved like silk in the wind. Ethan slowed down, the rain tapping hard on the roof of his truck. The horse didn't move. It simply stood there, watching him. There was something in its eyes, something too sharp, too focused, as if it was studying him. Ethan stepped out of the truck, pulling his jacket tighter against the cold wind. "Hey there, you lost?" he said softly, trying not to scare the animal. The horse tilted its head slightly, almost like it understood his words. He had worked with horses before, but none had ever looked at him like this. It wasn't the nervous look of an animal afraid of humans. It was calm, alert, and curious. Ethan slowly reached out his hand, and to his surprise, the horse took a step toward him. Its hooves made no sound against the wet road. When he touched its coat, it felt strangely warm, almost like there was heat coming from inside it. The rain began to pour harder, and Ethan knew he couldn't leave the animal out here. He gently took hold of its reins, or rather, the strange metallic strap around its head. It didn't look like any bridle he had seen before. The metal was smooth, polished, and faintly glowing in the dim light. He decided not to think too much about it. He led the horse back toward his small farm, just a short walk away. The horse followed without resistance, its eyes constantly scanning the sky as if expecting something. By the time they reached the stable, the storm had grown worse. Thunder rolled in the distance, and the trees swayed violently. Ethan guided the horse inside, giving it fresh hay and a blanket to dry off. But the horse didn't eat. Instead, it stood by the open stable window, staring at the dark clouds. Its ears twitched every time the thunder boomed. Ethan watched for a while, puzzled, before heading back to the house. He figured the poor thing was just scared by the storm. Later that night, as Ethan sat by the fire reading an old book, a strange sound made him pause. It wasn't the wind. It was more like a low hum, steady and deep, coming from outside. He stepped to the window and saw the horse still standing in the same position, looking up at the sky. The humming seemed to be coming from it. Ethan rubbed his eyes, wondering if he was imagining it. The sound faded after a few seconds, but it left him with an uneasy feeling. When he finally went to bed, sleep did not come easily. He dreamed of strange lights dancing in the sky, of silver ships gliding silently above the clouds. In his dream, the horse stood in the middle of a field, surrounded by glowing symbols on the ground. It turned its head toward him, and suddenly, its eyes were human blue, bright, and filled with something like sadness. He woke up with a start, his heart racing. It was just a dream, he told himself, but it felt too real. The next morning, the storm had passed, leaving the air crisp and cool. Ethan went to check on his new guest, expecting to find it tired or hungry. Instead, he found the horse standing in the middle of the stable, alert and watchful. The strange metallic strap was still glowing faintly, though he was sure it hadn't done that yesterday. When he stepped closer, the horse turned its head and looked straight at him. For a moment, Ethan had the strange, impossible feeling that it knew his name, and somewhere deep inside, he felt a quiet whisper, not spoken aloud, but heard in his mind. It was only one word, soft and clear. Wait, asterisk. The next few days passed quietly, at least on the surface. The silver-coated horse stayed in Ethan's stable, calm but always watchful. It never tried to escape, never caused trouble. But Ethan could not shake the feeling that it was different. There was something in the way it moved, slow and graceful, almost like it was thinking before every step. And there was something in its eyes, sharp, deep, as if they had seen far more than the rolling hills of this countryside. Ethan began to notice small, strange details. The horse never touched the hay or oats he offered, yet it never seemed weak or hungry. He would sometimes find a faint, sweet smell in the stable, like warm metal after lightning, and whenever Ethan spoke, the horse's ears would turn toward him instantly, even if he was far away. One afternoon, as a test, he gave it a complicated command, something no normal horse could understand. Go stand by the water trough, then turn around twice. To his shock, the animal did exactly that, slow and precise. He laughed nervously, trying to tell himself it was coincidence, but deep down he knew better. The most unsettling thing happened on the third night. Ethan had gone outside to lock the barn when he saw a faint glow on the ground near the stable door. At first, he thought it was just the moonlight, but when he stepped closer, he froze. There were strange shapes burned into the dirt, circles, lines, and symbols he had never seen before. They shimmered faintly as if the earth itself was giving off light. The horse stood nearby, watching him silently. Its eyes reflected the strange symbols like mirrors. Ethan reached down to touch one of the glowing marks, but the instant his fingers came close, the light faded, leaving only normal dirt behind. That night, the dreams returned. He was walking through a vast, empty plain under a black sky. Far away, the silver horse stood on a hill, its mane glowing like fire. The ground beneath it was covered in the same strange symbols he had seen earlier. A voice spoke inside his head again, quiet but urgent. "Not yet," it said. "They will come for me." Ethan woke up sweating, his heart pounding. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, wondering if he was losing his mind. The next morning, something even stranger happened. Ethan entered the stable to find the horse standing in front of the mirror he kept for grooming. It wasn't looking at its reflection, it was avoiding it, turning its head sharply every time it faced the glass. When Ethan moved the mirror in front of it, the horse stepped back quickly, almost fearfully. It was as if it didn't want to see itself, or perhaps didn't want Ethan to see what might appear. That same morning, he noticed the metallic strap on its head had changed shape slightly. It now had faint markings etched into it, like tiny alien writing. When he touched it, a jolt of warmth shot through his hand, leaving his fingertips tingling. Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Ethan sat on the fence near the stable, watching the last light fade. The air was quiet except for the chirping of crickets, but then he heard something faint at first, then clearer, a soft, rhythmic hum coming from the direction of the stable. It wasn't like the hum he'd heard before. This one had a pattern, almost like a language. He walked inside slowly, the sound growing louder. The horse stood perfectly still, its eyes closed, its head slightly lifted as if listening to something far away. For a moment, Ethan felt an odd pressure in his ears, as if they needed to pop. Then, in his mind, not through his ears, he heard a short, clear message. "They have found me." Before he could react, the humming stopped. The horse opened its eyes, and for the first time, Ethan thought he saw fear in them. Not the fear of an animal, but the fear of someone who knows exactly what's coming. A cold wind swept through the stable, though the night outside was still. Ethan stood there, staring at the silver creature, his thoughts racing. He had no idea what was going on, but deep down, he knew this was only the beginning. By the next evening, the sky had turned an unnatural shade of green. Thick clouds rolled in, swallowing the last rays of sunlight. The air felt heavy, charged with a strange electricity that made the hair on Ethan's arms stand up. The weather report had predicted light rain, but this was no normal storm. Ethan stood on his porch, staring at the horizon. The wind howled through the trees, bending their branches like they were made of paper. In the stable, the silver-coated horse was restless. It paced in slow, deliberate steps, pausing now and then to look out the small window toward the darkening sky. Each time lightning flashed in the distance, its mane seemed to shimmer faintly. Ethan had seen nervous horses before, but this wasn't fear, it was anticipation, almost as if the creature was waiting for something to arrive. When the first crack of thunder roared above, the horse lifted its head high and let out a deep, resonant sound, not a neigh, but something far more powerful. It echoed strangely in the air, vibrating in Ethan's chest. Rain began to pour in heavy sheets, drumming against the roof. Ethan decided to check on the animal, pulling on his jacket and stepping into the storm. The moment he entered the stable, he felt it hum, stronger than ever, filling the air like a living thing. The horse stood at the center of the room. Eyes closed, the strange metallic strap around its head glowing softly. Ethan took a cautious step forward. "What's happening?" he whispered, though he didn't expect an answer. But the answer came not with words, but in his mind. "They are here." The ground beneath his feet trembled, just a little at first. Then the sound came, a deep, low rumble, unlike thunder. Ethan stepped to the window and froze. Above the tree line, a massive triangular shape was descending silently. Its surface was black as night, but edged with faint blue lights that pulsed slowly. It didn't look like any aircraft he had ever seen. No engines, no blades, just a silent looming shadow that swallowed the sky. The horse moved to the open stable door. Its gaze locked on the ship. The rain fell around it, but not a single drop seemed to touch its shimmering coat. Then, without warning, a beam of pale light shot down from the ship, striking the ground. Just beyond the stable, the air crackled, and a strange warmth spread through the rain. Ethan could feel his heartbeat pounding in his ears. The horse stepped forward into the storm, standing tall. A bolt of lightning split the sky, striking dangerously close. But instead of flinching, the horse absorbed it, its body glowing with a soft blue radiance. Ethan stumbled back, his mind refusing to accept what he was seeing. The glow spread from the creature's mane to its hooves, and the metallic strap pulsed like a heartbeat. The beam from the ship grew brighter, almost blinding. The hum in the air intensified until Ethan felt his bones vibrating. He wanted to run, but his legs wouldn't move. The horse turned its head toward him, and for the first time, its eyes weren't just intelligent, they were human. A silent message filled his mind, sharp and urgent. "Do not be afraid." The ground shook again, harder this time, as if something massive had landed nearby. Through the sheets of rain, Ethan could make out tall, shadowy figures moving. At the edge of the light, they were coming closer, their movements fast and deliberate. The horse took one final step into the beam, its body now glowing so brightly Ethan could barely look at it. And then it began to change. The silver coat shimmered like liquid, flowing down and away. Its shape shifted, bones rearranging, muscles forming in ways that made Ethan's stomach twist. In seconds, the animal was gone. In its place stood a tall, striking woman with silver hair that flowed like molten metal and eyes that glowed in otherworldly blue. She looked directly at Ethan, rain running down her face yet never dimming. Her beauty, her voice, when she spoke aloud, was soft but filled with command. "They have found us," she said, "and they will not stop until one of us is gone." Behind her, the shadowy figures stepped into the light, revealing themselves. They were not human, and they were armed. For a moment, Ethan could only stare. The rain, the thunder, the strange ship above it all faded into the background. The woman standing before him was unlike anyone he had ever seen. Her silver hair caught the flashes of lightning, turning them into rivers of light. Her skin was pale but seemed to hold its own glow. And her eyes, those glowing blue eyes, were the same ones that had looked at him through the horse's face. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. "You," he whispered, though his voice was barely louder than the rain. She stepped closer, her bare feet leaving faint ripples of light in the puddles. The metallic strap that had once been on the horse's head was now a delicate crown resting against her temple. It pulsed softly, matching the rhythm of the beam of light from the ship. "You helped me," she said, her voice carrying an accent unlike any he had heard before. "And for that, they will come after you too." Ethan took a step back, his mind racing. "What are you? What's going on?" Before she could answer, the ground shook again, From the mist and rain, the shadowy figures grew clearer, tall, armored, with sharp, insect-like features. Their eyes glowed faintly red, and in their clawed hands they carried long, spear-like weapons that crackled with energy. "They are hunters," the woman said, her gaze fixed on them. "They were sent to track me down and bring me back alive, if possible, dead if not." The Finn's instincts told him to run, but something in her voice kept him rooted. "Why were you pretending to be a horse?" he asked, the absurdity of the question hitting him even as it left his mouth. Her eyes softened for just a moment. "My true form is too easily recognized by my enemies," she explained. "I used an old Andromedan disguise, an earth creature, to hide. It is not comfortable, but it has kept me alive this long." Lightning split the sky again, illuminating the hunters as they advanced through the storm. The ship above pulsed with brighter light, as if urging the woman to return. Ethan realized she was torn, caught between running to safety and staying here. He could feel her eyes on him, weighing a decision that seemed far bigger than the both of them. Then something strange happened. The crown on her head flared, and Ethan felt a sudden rush in his mind, images, sounds, memories that weren't his. He saw vast silver cities under alien skies, fleets of ships in orbit, and battles fought in the darkness of space. He saw her standing on a balcony, dressed in royal armor, speaking to thousands. And he saw the hunters burning her homeworlds, fields, their weapons leaving nothing but black ash. The vision ended as quickly as it came, leaving Ethan gasping. She stepped closer, her voice softer now. "My name is Lyra, princess of the Andromedan star realm," she said. "And I am the last of my bloodline still free." The hunters were almost at the stable now, their weapons raised. Ethan looked from them to Lyra, torn between disbelief and an instinctive need to protect her. "What do you want me to do?" he asked, his voice trembling. Lyra's eyes locked on his, and for a second, the chaos around them seemed to vanish. "I need you to trust me," she said, "because if they take me, your world will be next." Before Ethan could respond, one of the hunters raised its weapon and fired. A bolt of crackling energy shot toward them. Lyra moved with inhuman speed, pulling Ethan into the beam of light from the ship. The world outside blurred, the sound of the storm faded, and everything was swallowed by a soft humming glow. For a heartbeat, they seemed to float in nothingness. Ethan's feet barely touched the ground, and the air felt weightless. Lyra's hand was warm in his, her grip steady. "You have seen what I am," she said quietly. "Now you must decide if you will stand with me." The light around them grew brighter, and the hunters' shouts echoed faintly as if from another world. Ethan's heart pounded, but somewhere deep inside, he knew he had already made his choice. The world solidified around Ethan again, the blinding light faded, and he found himself standing inside a vast, dimly lit chamber. Its walls curved upward into a high dome, patterned with glowing blue lines that pulsed like a heartbeat. The air was warmer here, almost heavy, filled with a faint humming sound that seemed to come from the walls themselves. Ethan turned slowly, his eyes wide. This isn't possible," he whispered. Lyra stood a few feet away, her silver hair flowing like liquid under the soft glow. "This is my ship," she said, her voice calm but edged with urgency. "Not the one above your home. That was theirs. This one was hidden in orbit, waiting for me to return." Ethan's mind struggled to catch up. Why? Why are they chasing you? Why come to Earth at all? Lyra's expression darkened. "The hunters serve the Dominion, a vast empire that devours worlds," she said. "They have already taken most of the Andromedan star realm, my realm, and enslaved or destroyed its people. I am one of the few who escaped, but not by chance." She walked closer, her bare feet silent against the metal floor, her gaze locked on his. "Ethan, you were chosen." The words hit him like a physical blow. "What? Chosen for what?" "I didn't even know you existed until a few days ago." Lyra shook her head. "You didn't need to know. Your ancestors made the choice long before you were born." She lifted her hand. and the air shimmered between them, forming a series of images. Ethan saw Earth, but not as it was now. It was brighter, its oceans cleaner, its skies clear of satellites. Hovering above it were ships sleek and silver, far more advanced than anything humans had now. Lyra's voice was soft but firm. "Thousands of years ago, your world was visited by my people," she said. "Not to conquer, but to hide something, a fragment of an ancient defense network. We placed it in the care of a few chosen bloodlines, knowing that one day, when the Dominion came, those bloodlines would rise again." The images shifted, showing human tribes under alien stars. Ethan saw strange devices being handed to them, buried deep in mountains, sealed in temples. One image stood out, a tall figure with silver hair standing beside a human man who looked eerily like Ethan. The vision faded, leaving only the dim glow of the chamber. "You are one of those descendants," Lyra said. "The fragment is hidden somewhere on your planet, and your bloodline carries the genetic key to unlock it. That is why the Dominion sent hunters to Earth. They know that if you and I join forces, we can awaken the fragment and call the old fleet." Ethan felt like the floor had shifted under him. "You're telling me the fate of the planet is tied to me? Some guy who works on a farm?" Lyra's lips curved in the faintest smile. "My people do not choose warriors for their weapons," she said. "They choose those who will protect life at all costs. When you saw me on that road, you could have ignored me. But you didn't. You risked yourself for a creature you thought was just a horse. That is why you are the one." The hum in the chamber grew louder, and Lyra's expression turned serious again. "They will not stop, Ethan. If they take me, they will scour your planet until they find you. And if they find you first, they will destroy the key and burn the Earth to ash." Ethan swallowed hard, his mind spinning. "What exactly do you want me to do?" Lyra stepped closer until she stood right in front of him. Her eyes glowed brighter now, the blue light reflecting off the metal floor. "I want you to come with me," she said, "to the outer edge of your solar system, where the first piece of the key lies hidden. Once we have it, we can return before the Dominion fully commits its forces to your world." Ethan glanced toward the curved walls of the chamber. There were no doors, but he could feel the ship's silent movement beneath his feet. He looked back at Lyra. "If I say no?" Her voice grew quiet, but her words were sharp. "Then the next time you see your home, it will be nothing but smoke and silence." Ethan stood there, torn between the life he knew and the impossible truth in front of him. But deep down, he already knew what his answer would be. Ethan stood in the center of the alien chamber. The walls pulsed faintly with light, as if the ship itself was holding its breath. Lyra's words still echoed in his mind. If he went with her, he might be able to help save Earth. If he stayed, the Dominion would come, and they would not show mercy. He had never thought of himself as someone important. He wasn't a soldier, a leader, or a hero from the stories. He was just a man who looked after a small farm, fixed broken fences, and cared for animals. Yet here he was, being told that the fate of the entire planet might rest in his hands. The weight of it pressed down on him, heavier than the storm clouds that had hung over his home. Lyra watched him closely, her glowing blue eyes steady. She didn't push him, didn't demand an answer. She simply waited, outside, somewhere far. Beyond the metal walls, the Dominion ship still hunted them. Ethan could feel it like a shadow in the back of his mind, cold and unrelenting. Finally, he spoke. "If I go with you, what happens when we find this key?" Lyra stepped closer, her silver hair brushing lightly against her shoulders. "We unlock the fragment of the defense network," she said. "It will call to the old fleet, ships that have slept for thousands of years. If we succeed, Earth will have allies. If we fail—" She paused, her voice tightening. "Then there will be no one left to fight." Ethan's hands curled into fists. He thought about his home, the rolling green hills, the small town where everyone knew each other's names. He thought about the way the silver horse knew. Lyra had looked at him that first night. She had trusted him without a reason, and now she was asking for his trust in return. "What about the hunters?" he asked. "They'll follow us, won't they?" Lyra nodded. "They will, but here, in the open, they can use their full force. If we take the route I know, we can reach the fragment before they realize where we are going." Her voice carried a quiet determination. It wasn't the voice of someone making empty promises. It was the voice of someone who had already lost too much to lose again. Ethan took a slow breath. Every instinct told him to stay, to go back to his safe, quiet life. But he also knew that life no longer existed, not after what he had seen. If he pretended nothing had happened, he would always wonder, always feel the weight of the choice he didn't make. He looked at her. "You saved my life back there," he said. She tilted her head slightly. "And you saved mine." A faint smile touched his lips. "Then I guess we're even." For now, Lyra's expression softened, but her eyes still held that sharp focus. "You're saying yes?" Ethan nodded slowly. "I'm saying, let's do this." The lights in the chamber brightened instantly, as if the ship itself had been waiting for his answer. A low hum filled the air, deep and steady. Lyra stepped back and gestured toward the far end of the chamber. The metal there began to fold in on itself, revealing a long, narrow corridor lined with silver panels. "At the end of this path is the control deck," she said. "Once we're there, we'll plot a course to the edge of your solar system." Ethan followed her into the corridor, the walls glowing faintly with each step they took. The ship felt alive, its faint vibrations moving up through his boots. It was both unsettling and strangely reassuring. As they walked, he glanced sideways at Lyra. "You know," he said, "this is a lot to process. Aliens, space wars, ancient defense networks. Are you sure you've got the right guy?" She didn't look at him, but a small smile played on her lips. "I've been sure since the moment you stopped your truck in the rain." They reached the control deck, a vast room filled with floating screens and swirling holograms. Through the front window, Ethan saw the curve of the earth far below. Wrapped in soft blue light, it looked peaceful, untouched, but he now knew that peace could shatter at any moment. Lyra stepped to the central console and placed her hands on it. The hologram shifted, displaying star charts and streams of alien text. "Once we leave orbit," she said, "there's no turning back. The Dominion will know we're moving, and they'll come after us harder than before." Ethan moved to stand beside her. "Then we better make it worth the risk." She looked at him, her expression unreadable for a moment. Then she nodded, and the ship's engines roared to life. The stars outside shifted as the vessel angled away from Earth, and for the first time in his life, Ethan felt the weight of an entire world behind him. The ship shuddered as it broke free from Earth's pull. Stars stretched into bright lines as Lyra pushed the vessel into faster-than-light travel. Ethan gripped the edge of the console, his knuckles white. He had never imagined he would leave his planet, let alone in the company of an alien princess being hunted across the stars. For a brief moment, everything seemed calm. The hum of the engines was steady, and the view ahead was a tunnel of swirling starlight. But the peace didn't last. A sharp alarm cut through the air. Red symbols flashing across the control screens. Lyra's eyes narrowed. "They found us," she said, her voice low. "They're faster than I thought." Ethan turned toward the window. Behind them, shapes began to emerge from the streaking stars, sleek black ships with jagged wings and glowing red eyes at their cores. The hunters, they moved like predators, silent and certain, closing the gap with terrifying speed. Lyra's fingers danced over the controls, the ship tilting sharply. Ethan was nearly thrown off his feet. The tunnel of light twisted as the vessel dove toward a dense asteroid field. "They won't risk firing in here," she said. "Too much debris, too high a chance of hitting themselves." The ship weaved between tumbling rocks the size of houses. The hunters followed, their ships darting effortlessly through the gaps. Ethan's chest tightened. "They're still coming." Lyra's jaw clenched. "They will keep coming until one of us is gone." An explosion rocked the side of the ship, sending sparks across the control deck. Ethan staggered. grabbing onto a railing. They're firing now. They're getting desperate, Lyra replied. Her hands moved faster over the controls. Panels on the walls slid open, revealing small glowing spheres that floated into the air. Decoys, she explained quickly. They'll confuse their targeting systems, buy us time. The spheres shot out into the asteroid field, splitting into dozens of smaller fragments that pulsed with the same energy signature as Lyra's ship. Almost instantly, several hunter ships veered off course, chasing the false signals, but 3 remained locked on their trail. Lyra's eyes flicked to Ethan. We can't outrun them like this. We need to use the slip, Ethan frowned. The slip? A shortcut through folded space, she said. Dangerous, unstable. And our only chance. She pulled a lever beside the console, and a deep vibration rolled through the ship. The view outside warped, the stars bending inward like they were being pulled into a drain. Ethan felt a strange weight pressing on him. As if the air had grown thicker, his vision blurred for a moment. Then the blackness outside erupted into a tunnel of shifting colors. The hunters followed, but the slip was unpredictable. The tunnel twisted violently, throwing their formation apart. One hunter ship collided with an asteroid, pulled into the slip's path, shattering into fragments of glowing metal. Another lost control and spun into the swirling void, disappearing completely. Only one remained, still pursuing them. Lyra's face was tense but focused. We're almost through, she said. Hold on. The tunnel ahead began to narrow, the colors brightening until they were almost blinding. Ethan braced himself as the ship shot out into open space again. A massive, ring-shaped planet loomed before them, its rings glittering with icy debris. Lyra didn't slow, weaving through the glowing ice fields at breakneck speed. The last hunter ship followed until one of the massive ice boulders drifted into its path. It tried to dodge, but clipped the edge, spinning out of control before vanishing into the darkness. Silence filled the control deck. The alarms faded, replaced by the steady hum of the engines. Ethan exhaled slowly, his hands still gripping the console. That was insane, he said, his voice shaky. Lyra gave the faintest smile. Insane, yes, but we're alive. She turned her gaze toward the great ringed planet ahead. That's where we begin, she said. The first fragment of the key is hidden somewhere on one of its moons. Ethan followed her gaze, the vast world filling the window. It was beautiful, alien, and terrifying all at once. As the ship angled toward the nearest moon, Ethan felt the weight of the journey ahead settle on him. The hunters would return. The Dominion would not give up. But for now they had escaped. And for the first time since this began, he felt a spark of something he hadn't expected. Hope.